In science and analysis, it is a blessing to be able to receive new information, analyze and process new information, and have the courage and insight, wisdom to be able to receive a new perspective based on the logical information presented to you. We live in a society today where even when good logical information is being presented, people don't even assess it. They literally just skip over it. They skip over it like there was a whole blank. Like I sat here and explained it and had a communication with you and an interaction with you, and you literally skipped over all of the pivotal information that supports my position. Just to say that if it doesn't agree with your position or your perspective, then there's no need to even process new information. You know, that's dangerous. That is very dangerous. That's dangerous for human beings. That is dangerous for a society where people are supposed to be civilized. Supposed to? Who said we're supposed to be? I don't have no historical precedent that says that we are supposed to live in a society that is supposed to be civil. In my African world, I don't have no such precedent. But in my moral compass, right, in my ethical processor, and my wisdom, unless your outcome, you intend for it to be insanity, then you must decide how you want to interact in your society so that you create harmony, because inside of the harmony is everyone's right to a quality of life, a good quality of life, right? So that's the basic mathematics. So just because you ignore the facts doesn't mean that they fail to exist. And I'm realizing that I understand that as a logic, but guess what? We learned that logic from our environment. Because people having a white cultural experience, what is a part of the white culture is the dismissal of any perspective or information that goes against whatever that person or that society or that general ideology is. They just dismiss it. They just erase it, dismiss it, skip over it mentally in conversation, actively functioning. It's not like this was an email. This is an active conversation where I continue to say, well, then what about thus and thus? Or what about, for me, I'm the person that always starts at the beginning. See, this whole narrative, this whole life timeline, we see variations and expressions of the gene pool, but that's on the timeline. That's not to erase anybody. We're not erasing anyone. We're saying that the timeline didn't start 500 years ago. The timeline started 200,000 years ago. Okay, just because you, Johnny Come Lately, just got here 40,000 years ago, the timeline has started long before you got here, and your lack of wisdom and the behavior that you have demonstrates that you just got here. You know, that's like me. I'm the parent. I'm going to tell my youth, you know, I've lived this life already. I went across all of that space. I trekked across all of it. And you know what? You can have benefit of my insight and of my wisdom. So this temper tantrum foolishness, this behavior that you're exhibiting is a lack of maturity. It is a need for immediate gratification. It's not a productive behavior that allows you to cohabitate harmoniously with the other people that are also entitled to their quality of life. And you know what? That fact right there has been proven time and time again. That's the fact that actually has been proven. Nothing else, everything else is performative and theoretical. And I can say, African, you've practiced this behavior because of your prolonged exposure to this dysfunctional mentality. People having a white culture experience, they get to deal with that. They have the fun, they have the time, and if they so are motivated to address it, they can. You as an African, you are functionally living in this life, and you still have a lot of journeying around your own personal healing and the healing of your community and the way you interact with others. And just because you per se may have limitations in accepting and activating a particular perspective doesn't mean that everyone does. Because I don't. Because I worked through those things 20 years ago. And it doesn't matter. I've even met people who are twice my age, and they are still incapable of processing new information, making an assessment, implementing it into their theory, and finding out that there's some friction. So maybe they need to replace that theory with this new information, which really isn't new information. What it really demonstrates is that you were lazy. It demonstrates that you spent all your time getting bells, whistles, and ribbons and clap it upsons from the Matrix, demonstrating yourself to be complicit. And by the circumstance, you just went along to get along because you wanted to cater to your ego. What you didn't do is you didn't feed the African what was good for the African. But you did get yourself a better seat in the master's house for your 80 years. So good for you. Good for you. As a functional tool in our community and the things that we need as a society, we got a lot of work to do, and we're going to need to make sure that we can see those individuals, hear their perspective, no matter where they are in the authority, because there's a thing in psychology, the implied authority. So people above you, older than you, in a particular profession, people are smart in their particular areas, maybe, and that's it. Everything else about their lives are a mess. Everything about their integrity is a mess. Everything about their commitment to harmony is a mess, right? So for me, I don't hear nothing you saying because I see what you do. And I'm not engaged in your performative foolishness. For me, I've lived this work, and it's been very harmful to me in my process of living this work. But I'm living it because I know it's right. I'm not looking for your approval or your claps. They're not necessary because the divine already said it is so, because the timeline didn't begin yesterday. So I don't need to succumb to the circumstances of this moment because I have investigated and I know thyself. Nayam Akbar said, African, know thyself. So if you know yourself, the little teeny weeny trinkets and clap it up, since that's actually the psychology of reward and punishment. That's what it is. That's how they're playing you. Dr. So-and-so, authority, pillar, position of the universal, whatever is happening in this social landscape here of white-centered consciousness, clap it up for you. What they've actually done is they've trained you the same way that they do animals, which is called the punishment and reward. They have a little handful of doggy treats. You go to the door, pat the door, come run back to the master and bring the shoes. You get a little treat. Yeah, so you get your clap it up since and you stay on that track that takes you where they intend to take you. Because whatever decisions you're going to be making, they are also going to make sure that those decisions serve their outcome and their greatest good. That's just what it is. That is white-centered consciousness. That is white culture. It is what it is. Yes, the people on the timeline today may not necessarily have contributed to what begun this journey, but they definitely contribute every day in their lived experience, whether they are aware of it or not. Africans, whether you are aware of it or not, you continue to be an ambassador of the functions that diminish and encroach on the quality of life of other human beings who were always entitled to their quality of life. It was white-centered consciousness and white culture that decided that if science was going to pad its theory about African people not being human, so that you could brand, whip, maim, and the ultimate blah, blah, blah to African people, to force their compliance to your metrics and your systems. That doesn't make it right. And the fact that no one addressed that then when it happened and created a civil society is the very reason why we are faced with what we are faced with now. If your behavior continues to be as it always was, it will continue to create what it always has. Peace and blessings. We are stand for the ascending of the African soul and the opening of the African spirit. Sawubona African. Peace and blessings.